Hi, everybody. This is Pete Delatorre. I'm the CEO of Camacol Talk, and welcome once again to Camacol Talk. Today's program is brought to you by the City of Doral, Baptist Health South Florida, City Place Doral, and Jackson Health. My guest today is Dr. Joel Calafell. He is a colon and rectal surgeon with Baptist for many, many years. Today we're going to talk about the whole area and important aspect of our colon and other things that are important to our health. Let's sit back and watch that conversation. Okay, as has previously announced, my guest now is Dr. Joel Calafell from Baptist Health South Florida. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing very well, Peter. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Sorry I'm a little late. Had a little bit of morning rounds that got extended, and I had to get the video up and running, as quickly as possible. But I'm here. We're ready. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's do it, man. For the benefit of our audience, we have viewers and we have listeners, both. If you can give us a little bit about your background. I know you are a native Miamian. You've been here born and raised in Miami. Give us a little bit more, I guess, maybe what motivated you to take the path of healthcare and becoming a physician.
So yeah, you are right. I am born and bred Miami native. I'm actually even born and bred a Baptist. I was actually born in Baptist, Maine, which all my bosses thought it was very funny that I'm coming back full circle. And what really motivated me to go to healthcare is just my general passion to just help our fellow man. And what that turned into was in undergrad and then even medical school was my love for anatomy and the human body and all the ways that make it work and things like that. And that just made me, solidify my cause to be a surgeon. The fact that I can heal somebody with my actual hands, and my whole philosophy in medicine is, if my goal is to possibly cure you, that's what I want to do. Treating is one thing, but if I have a chance to actually cure you of an ailment, that's the best reward I can imagine. In terms of my specific specialty, general surgery and colorectal surgery. Specifically, colorectal surgery is what I went to fellowship for. I love this specialty because it's a very vast specialty that lets me do things from cancers all the way to benign issues like constipation, hemorrhoids, colonoscopies, things like that. And it's a very, very important part of our community, especially in the health world. It's something that's not really talked about that much, but it is very, very important, given that specifically colon and rectal cancer, it's the fourth most common cancer that we deal with, but it's the second most common cancer to lead to death. So it's a big topic,
Yes.
and there's a lot of research going into it even now, and a lot of things that we still can do better for the public to just be better prepared and hopefully try to eliminate colon and rectal cancer altogether.
I can't remember the actor's name that passed away about a year ago or a year and a, or a couple of years ago. He was the guy that was in Black Panther, and
Yep. Yeah.
I can't remember his name at the moment. Great, great young actor, and I think it was 46. He passed away with colon cancer. It's a very, very sad, and it's a reality. I know that last year, a little bit over a year ago, I had my colonoscopy after 10 years. They told me back then, 10 years before, you're good, come back in 10 years, which is always a great thing to hear after you get a colonoscopy. And, I'm a little bit older now, and I'm figuring, okay, they're going to, after a look at everything, they're going to tell me to come back probably in 5 years. But again, thank God it was come back in 10 years. And everything was fine. They did recommend a very strong diet focus on fiber, which I'm sure you tell all of your patients. Let's talk a little bit about that whole world of the colon and the colonoscopies and what are I guess the symptoms of an impending issue or problem.
And that's the scary thing of colon cancers, is a lot of them are very silent. Especially right-sided colon cancers are the ones that we find at the time are more aggressive, because they just don't have many symptoms. And the symptoms could be very vague. It could be as simple as, the patients come in, they've noticed a little bit of darkening of their stools because maybe they're bleeding a little bit from the cancer. Maybe they've been anemic for years and no one's really figured out why. Especially in a female, a lot of people attribute it to fibroids and things like that, when probably it was a colon cancer the entire time. Most people don't really experience many symptoms. when they experience very severe symptoms, it's usually because the cancer has spread
Yep.
very aggressively, and it is a very aggressive big tumor. Like in terms of they're obstructed from it, they're having a lot of significant bleeding from it. By then, the cancer is already advanced.
Yep.
So our goal in terms of colonoscopies is to find those cancers before they even become cancers, because we all know, and our research has shown, every single type of colon and rectal cancer starts off as a little polyp.
Yep.
And if you can get that polyp with the endoscopy, you have prevented that thing from turning into cancer. So when I tell people, and people ask me, is colon rectal cancer preventative? For the most part, it is. Now, granted, there are some people, unique cases, like that actor that played Black Panther, which killed me. Me being a giant Marvel fan, I absolutely loved him as Black Panther. And unfortunately, he was found to be already like stage 3, almost stage 4, and he had a positive family history, but he wasn't screened early enough. And that's the issue. And that's why we have actually changed our screening guidelines very recently, as much as last year, from it's no longer a 50-age start. It is a 45-year start, even with no family history. And then if you have family history, it gets even younger, because when we initially made the guideline changes 20 years ago from 60 to 50, it was because, well, we've been seeing more polyps in younger patients. Well, we did the same exact data, and the same thing. We're seeing younger patients with polyps and even sometimes cancer. So that's what pushed us to bring the age down to 45.
Yeah, and that's happening more and more. I think as much as we're promoting wellness and eating the right foods, unfortunately, the obesity situation continues to expand in this country, meaning a lot of people are not eating well, and that causes all sorts of diseases. Yet at the same time, the undue stress that we're all going through is I'm hearing from a lot of medical experts that say that is maybe the number one reason that we get the cancers that we get. I just went through prostate cancer last summer, and I had to have surgery because it was pretty aggressive. But thank God it was isolated there, and to this point I keep coming. But it's a reminder. It's a reminder that we can't avoid or sweep under the rug our visits to our doctors on a regular basis, and to do all the exams you need to do, especially the ones that are important at a certain age in our lives. A 20-year-old, you're not going to tell them to go get a colonoscopy, but yet if it runs in the family, okay, what does it hurt, right? Yep. It's the night before is the worst. We know that. The stuff you got to drink and all that. But I'll tell you, I know that when I've done it twice, man, I go, take me to the closest pancake house and let me just go at it there, because you're just starving. But what should we do? I know the fiber diet is real important to all of that. What are some of the other things that we can do to kind of stay ahead of it and not let it catch us by surprise?
No, and it comes twofold. When people are stressed out, they really don't focus on healthy eating. I mean, we call it the binge foods, and nobody ever binges on apples and berries and bananas. We all binge on donuts, milkshakes, and burgers. And unfortunately, a high fiber diet, it's just something in this country that it's not implemented in our culture. Like in Asia and the Eastern countries, fiber is not a big deal, because if you look at their food, their plates, obviously before American influence, now that McDonald's is there, that's a different story. But you look at their focus, is like the focus of the actual meal is the vegetables. And here in American culture, it's the complete opposite. The focus is the meat. Thanksgiving is all about the turkey. Meatloaf night is all about the meatloaf. Well, in the Asian culture, it's a bunch of vegetables and maybe a little bit of meat that's there. And that's like a little piece, because the main thing is the vegetables. Yep. And unfortunately, if that's not ingrained into you, it's actually really hard to get the amount of fiber that you need. So the World Health Organizations recommend a female have an average of 25 grams of fiber a day. A male have 30 grams of fiber a day. And people think like, it doesn't sound that much, but when you break down what foods you think are high fiber, you realize, oh, wow, I'm nowhere near. Because patients are like, oh, but doctor, I eat like an apple a day and all this stuff. It's like an apple at best has 5 grams of fiber. Yeah. I love apples. I don't eat 5 to 6 apples a day. It's a mix. You have to have a mix of foods. You have to be educated on what foods actually have fiber and what foods really don't. People always come to me, I was like, oh, I eat tons of spinach. You can eat 3 bags of spinach and get 2 grams of fiber.
Yes.
Doesn't have much. What really has fiber is the vegetables and the fruits that have skin on them. And the skin is what really holds the amount of fiber. Because the reason why is most of the skin is not digestible. And that's what you want. Because the way the fiber works in combination with water is when it enters your colon, it holds water in, because your colon's primary job is to absorb water.
Mm-hmm.
And absorbs water at a set point. It doesn't say like, okay, what's in here doesn't have that much water, so let me slow down. Nope. It will take in as much water as needed as it wants. The fiber kind of fights your colon a little bit to keep water in. So to keep your stools a little bit on the softer side, which prevents constipation, hemorrhoids, fissures, diverticulosis, which turns into diverticulitis. And the problem is if you have all that material in there that's very dried up, it stays in there longer. Those toxins build up, and we know can have an increased risk of cancer.
You just said something, the skin on the foods, it's better. I don't know why I thought about this, but you need to have that proverbial skin in the game.
Yes, you do.
To make sure that you can avoid what could happen down the road.
Yep.
How has COVID affected, it's affected so many things in terms of our general health. From what you've seen, it may be too early to tell, has that affected negatively the whole issue with the colon?
It has, because the issue is the colonoscopies. People are scared to come into the hospital. They come in too scared to see their doctors for their first screening colonoscopy, or they're delayed. Let's say somebody had a history of pretty large polyps, and we tell them, hey, you need to come back in a year, 3 years, even up to 6 months, depending on what we find. And when the pandemic hit, people were too scared to come in. They said, no, I'm going to ignore it. I don't have any symptoms. I have no issues. I'm just going to prolong it. And they end up in the emergency department with a obstructing colon cancer because
Jesus.
Now it's been unchecked. And those, every time I see those type of patients, my first question is, when is your last colonoscopy? And for the most part, they tell me never had one before. And I'm like, this is all really preventable. And these obstructing cancers are really, really terrible to treat because, ideally when we're treating a colon cancer and I'm treating it surgically, we have time, hopefully it's not a very aggressive tumor. I can prep your colon completely and reset your colon and put you back together, avoid an ostomy as little as possible. Well, in an obstructing cancer, I may not have that option. I may have to take out more colon than I need to and have to possibly give you an ostomy bag. And it's potentially lifelong because if it's an aggressive cancer, well, now we need chemotherapy. We possibly need radiation if it's rectal cancer. And it's going to be a very difficult and long road. And unfortunately, I tell the patients, it may have been all preventable. And they ask me that too.
Yeah.
And it's a big point to really, and it's an emphasis. And I love to give talks to the PCPs to be out there to understand the guidelines that if you have somebody who's high risk in the family or anything, you need to ask those questions because 45 might not be their age. It might be 38.
Yep.
You don't know.
Yep.
And a couple years difference may be all the difference from a polyp to a resectable, now the patient probably needs a colon resection. But even then, if you get to that point, at least it's treatable versus, wow, this is a stage 4 cancer. It has invaded the liver, has invaded the lungs. The 5-year survival for that is 20-25%.
Yep.
It's terrible.
I had a friend of mine who 20 years ago, a little bit over 20 years ago, gave himself a birthday present. And he went in to take a test, an exam. It was kind of a new type of exam to test out the colon. Everything was fine. And when they did the exam, he had stage 4 colon cancer. And didn't know, he just, let me give myself a present here, a gift, and take care of myself. And that was, but it wasn't for any other issue than just going in and doing what everybody tells you to do, get a checkup. And he did it, hit stage 4 colon cancer. Thank God today, 20 or so years later, my understanding, he's doing fine.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you hear stage 3, stage 4, it's like you're seeing the writing on the wall and you're calling all your loved ones to do your last goodbyes. I mean, it's never done until it's over, until it's completely over there. But yet it's not a good situation to be in. We got a couple of minutes left. What tips do you want to share with everyone in relations to your colon and the things that we should be doing on a regular basis? I mean, I know we've touched on it, but just kind of like some key takeaways.
Yeah. No, the things that I tell everybody to be on the lookout for good overall colon health is, change up your diet a little bit. Look what you're actually eating. And I tell people, write it all down, do a food diary. And then you'll really see, oh wow, you know what? I don't eat a lot of vegetables that I think I do. Like, you know what? I eat a lot of processed meat. I eat, because people don't think about it. You're thinking about it like, okay, I should change my diet. But change it to what? Well, what am I really doing wrong? But if you have that food diary, it's like, man, you know what? That morning McMuffin is full of bad stuff. And you know what? I get these snacks at the gas station. I don't even think about it.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. They all add up. And, in terms of, and it's all about small switches. I'm not telling you it's so easy to completely reverse your habit of eating all at once. But instead of, going after that, the egg McMuffin in the morning, why not try a hard-boiled egg and an apple? Simple change. Instead of going to the gas station and grabbing a Twinkie or a beef jerky or something like that, there's apples and bananas in the gas station.
That's true.
They have them there and they're pretty cheap. Grab an apple.
Absolutely true. It's just habit. It's just doing things a certain way, and then the mindset is always like, oh well, it's not going to hurt me if I have one of these today. And the problem that becomes habitual thinking, and
Exactly.
it's like it did hurt you one day, but the more you do it, then is when you got the problems there. But
exactly. I'm not saying now that there's a lot of data out there that says, oh, red meat is terrible for the colon and things like that. There's a lot of data, but when they looked at that data, it's people that had 2 to 3 servings of red meat a day.
Yeah.
So they were eating a lot of red meat. So I'm not saying red meat is not a bad thing in moderation. Red meat has a lot of good fats, good proteins, vitamin B12 that we need to have a healthy diet. And most people, that are very good vegetarians and vegans learn how to substitute that into their diet. And if you talk to people who are very healthy vegans and vegetarians, it's not very easy. They have to find multiple different ways to do it. But in terms of people who have a healthy diet, you see they eat meat once a day, once every other day. And you see a lot of their diet is lean meat, chickens, fish, things like that. Or there's no meat at all. It's mainly all possible vegetables, beans, things like that are other substitutes for protein. Eggs as well are a great source of protein. But it's all about variety, and like I love one of our nutritionists that I do a lot of talks with. She says, make your plate colorful.
I was just going to go there. I interviewed her.
Colorful.
Yeah. I was going, look, eat colors.
Eat colors. That's very important. Eat colors. And that's why I try to instill it in my kids as well. And so far it's worked, because every time they go to like parties and things like that, there's always, everybody brings the chicken nugget platter and everything. And then there's the fruit and vegetable platter, which kind of really nobody touches.
It's almost like untouched. Yeah, I hear you.
It's almost untouched, but you see my kids going after it because they love cucumbers, they love carrots, and they love fruit. I mean, my 2 kids were kind of like me growing up. They're borderline, half monkey. They love fruit, but it's a great thing. And it's taught to them really by me and my wife. And it's not that we're forcing it, is that me and my wife eat like that too. And that's a big problem that I see in the younger generation, is that we force the younger generation to eat all this healthy stuff. But then I ask them, like, well, what do your parents eat? Because that's where they get it. That's where they get it off. Because and we do it a lot in bariatrics, is when you have a whole family trying to help this one patient, it's not good. They're not going to do well if that one patient is, on a 1,000 calorie diet, but if everybody else in the house is eating, croqueta, tostada, all that stuff.
Yeah,
it's not going to work.
It's a major disconnect. Dr. Calafell, thank you so much for taking time in your very, very busy schedule to be with us and share this very insightful and very important information for everyone. Yeah. I don't care what age you're at. This is something we have to take to heart. So I really, truly appreciate it.
No, it's very true. And I tell patients all the time, look back in your family history, ask mom, ask dad, who had issues with their colon, who had colonoscopies. And that turns into, I had a patient, a young patient, their parents came in to see me because, they asked me about colonoscopy and realized I never had one yet. So they came to see me. And it's a huge thing. Ask about your family history, talk to your primary care doctors. If you're of age and your risk is a little higher than average, just ask. And, if the PCBs have a question, they just call me. and I'm happy to see any patient about it.
Thank you so much. If I could run into more doctors with your kind of energy, enthusiasm, I think it would be a pleasure to get an annual physical just to have great conversations. So thank you so much for being with us today.
No, I appreciate it. Anytime, Peter. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, my friend. Take care of yourself.
Bye-bye. Have a great
Bye-bye.
day.
Hey, big thank you once again for Dr. Joel Calafell for providing us much needed information on the whole aspect of our colon and the things that we've got to be on the lookout for. Thanks for your feedback and comments on this program. It's really helping us shape our programming. When you got a moment, follow us on all of our social media platforms and subscribe to the Camacol Talk YouTube channel. I want to wish everyone a fantastic weekend. You take care of yourselves, and God bless.